right, everyone. It's that time where we bring in Jesse White, our agent here at Sports Journey. Jesse White's doing some great things, working with several clients now. So over the last few months, he's gone from not just being on-air talent here with us, but doing some great stuff, as we mentioned. So what's going on, Jesse? How you been, my friend?
Doing well, Lake. How are you doing?
Always great, always great. Listen, Miami Heat, right now, they had an opportunity last night to really be able to, knock out Indiana, move on to their fourth consecutive NBA Finals. They didn't get the job done. Paul George went out, had a great series. He's having a great series, but he had specifically probably his career game last night, 21 points in the fourth quarter. My question to you, and I tease you, my friend, because I know you're a big Miami Heat fan, does this alter anything that they're going to do this year?
I don't think so. I think that where they are right now, I think the Heat are still perfectly fine. They have another game in Miami, up 3-2. You have to think that any team that you put against a wall, if they're a decent team, they're going to come out fighting, especially at home. That wasn't anything that I didn't expect to have Indiana. I think if Indiana wins Game 6, obviously the Heat are in trouble, but I don't think this is anything different than what was kind of expected.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana has to do something that they haven't done yet, Jesse, and that's, to win on Miami's home court. Mm-hmm. And the Heat are a different team at home. We know that they're going to get out into a fast start. This is a series, though, that I didn't expect Indiana to be in it. I didn't expect Indiana to do hardly any damage whatsoever, and they've stuck around. Perhaps now, they're a dangerous team because they really have nothing to lose here. You saw that last night. They played a little bit more free on offense. A lot of buckets were falling. Maybe they outshot themselves. We'll find out, tomorrow. But in looking ahead here, Miami clearly is the better team.
Oh, absolutely. Top to bottom, you can't deny it. Roy Hibbert's been off and on. I don't want to say he's been pedestrian because he has a couple good games here and there. Paul George has been good. You have Stevenson plays well off and on. Had great first two games, not so great third and fourth. But then you look on the Heat side. You have LeBron, have Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and then you also have Ray Allen out there. Mm-hmm. They don't generally have that off of games. Now, granted, LeBron had a bad game with foul trouble and all of that yesterday, but they're a lot more consistent. And when you get that consistency, in a 7-game series, that makes all the difference.
Well, I'm glad that this happened. I'm going to play conspiracy theorist, which I do hear a lot on the show. I'm actually glad it happened because the last thing I wanted to see was Miami, take a team out 4-0 or, in 5 and they get a week off until, you don't play again, if I'm not mistaken, until June 2nd or
I think it might be 5th.
Or 5th, yeah. So you're talking about well over a week's worth of rest for a defending champion, which clearly would make them stronger going into the finals. And you would think that before, if I told you this last week, it clearly looked as if, it was going to be Miami and Oklahoma City. I'm sorry, Miami and San Antonio, but Oklahoma City has come out now, won the last two in Oklahoma City. Serge Ibaka comes back, and you and I were talking about this off the air. I literally have said this. If Serge Ibaka had played the first two games, Oklahoma City may be on their way to the finals right now because they owned San Antonio 4-0 this year when games with Serge Ibaka played, and now you can see that he makes a big difference because he closes it up in the middle for San Antonio. They're struggling now to score buckets in the paint now that he's back.
Yeah, and I think the number is going back as far as it goes with Serge Ibaka. I think it's 15 out of 17 or 17 out of 19 that the Thunder have won. And I don't know, even without Ibaka, I wasn't writing off the Thunder yet just because of the fact that until San Antonio won a game in Oklahoma City, I wasn't ready to write that series off. Now, granted, they blew them out in San Antonio, and the Thunder still needed to win one game in San Antonio, but until you win on the visitors' court, I guess you should say win on the road at the other team's court. I don't know. You can never write a series off. So it's great to see that the Thunder have bounced back and are making it a great series.
Well, keep in mind, Jesse, that Oklahoma City lost those first two games in San Antonio. No Serge Ibaka.
Right.
So again, I mean, I'm not trying to overplay, his role. We know that he's their third option, but he's also, a defensive player of the year guy. He led the league in blocks again this year. So we're talking about a guy that really alters game plans as far as how you attack teams. And let's face it, San Antonio is as professional and as organized and structured as they are, they still like to have Tim Duncan touch the ball every time down the floor, even if he's passing it back out. They still want to run everything from the inside out. So, again, these series have taken on a whole new life now, and I'm going to put you on the spot again here. Because a week ago, I know you're saying, I didn't write off Oklahoma City, but you still had San Antonio winning the series.
Yep, absolutely.
Of course. Anything change your thoughts on who's still going to be in the finals?
Not at this point. Until San Antonio loses in San Antonio. If they win tonight and get up 3-2, I'm still riding it out. I still see a repeat of last year's finals, Miami and San Antonio.
All right, so if Miami were to lose in Miami and it goes back to Indiana for Game 7, you still have Miami beating them in Indiana?
I do, and the reason why is I still don't think Indiana's over that hump. It's when their back's against the wall, they find a way to get it done, but then when the Heat get against the wall, they're still the better team at the end of the day. They have the experience. And you look at last year, granted it was in Miami, they just find a way to get it done. And Indiana hasn't had to do that, and maybe they'll get over that hump, but I don't see it happening.
Folks, right now, Jesse White, my agent, our agent here at Sports Journey, joins us, up-and-coming sports agent in this business. Now, you're an agent, you're a lawyer, better yet, you're even a defense attorney. So I got to pick your brain on a subject that has been running rampant for the last, 3 weeks here, and that's obviously Donald Sterling. Mm-hmm. He comes out and says that, he's going to fight the NBA, which everyone knew he was.
Right.
But he also supposedly has a clause with his wife that states that she legally can try to sell the team. It seems like she's trying to proceed with that, and obviously the league has a deadline for all the the owners to give their vote by Tuesday, so they're hoping that something can be worked out by midnight Monday. So
right.
My point to you, Jesse, is that Shelly Sterling is trying to sell the team, and supposedly she's got some takers where the league's hoping that the team can be sold as of midnight on Monday to one of these takers. Donald Sterling, on the other hand, is saying now that he didn't really give her that opportunity, that he actually wants to fight this. Where do you think this thing goes from your experiences?
It'll go through court one way or another. It's just whenever you have this much money involved and these kind of egos involved, there's no way it doesn't get filed. Maybe it'll get taken care of in mediation, negotiation, who knows, but something's going to happen with the court.
Could you foresee this thing getting to a point where, under any circumstances, he's legally allowed to keep this team?
I can see how he legally could have the team, however, not being allowed to be associated with any basketball activities, anything with the team. I don't know why on earth you would want to.
Well, I mean, sometimes when you're 81-year-old billionaire, you've probably had 81 years of having things go your way. Sometimes you fight just because. That's just in your nature to show people you're not going to do this to me. I'll say this. I'm going to throw a hypothetical thing out there that if you really want to shake this up and make a stance, if you're the NBA, how about you do this? How about you say, okay, you don't want to work with us. You want to try to sue us here for doing something that was in our bylaws and in our clause of you being an owner that you broke, even though, yes, I'll be the first to say this, and I say this as an African-American man. I don't think what he did was wrong. What he said was wrong, but what he did was in the comforts of his own home. And if you can't say stuff in your own home, we're all going to jail. We're all going somewhere else that starts with jail. It sounds like jail starts with an H. But my point is that we're getting to a point now in society where you have to watch what you say at all times. And he did defame the league. I mean, he did make the league look bad, and that's one of the clauses that you can't do as an owner. He says it doesn't say that you can't do it in your own house. Well, somehow, some way it went public and you said it.
Right.
And you owned up to saying it. It doesn't look good no matter how you say it. This is my thing, though. If you're the league and this guy's going to fight you tooth and nail, how about you do this? How about you say, okay, all the owners have voted you out, but if you want to keep your team, fine. You can keep the Clippers. We'll put another team here in Los Angeles with one of the new ownership groups, change the name, colors, the whole nine, or even better yet, we can keep the colors. We'll just change the name. Could that float?
The league according to what they have in their CBA, can add teams, and they can do that if the owners vote to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Put another team there. It is possible to squeeze him out that way, because that's the other thing that's going to hurt him, is maybe he winds up keeping the team somehow, but no one's going to play for him.
Right, and the other thing is he doesn't own, and he has nothing to do with the Staples Center. I mean,
right.
They rent that. They're actually renting from the Lakers. But, that could be a catchy point, too, because perhaps if you have a new ownership group and the league says, we're just going to disband the Clippers, but as opposed to guys being free agents, we'll keep the team intact, salaries and everything. You get a new ownership group that clearly can afford to pay those salaries if they're going to pay $1 billion plus for the team. My question now is, would the Lakers somehow play hardball and say, well, maybe we don't want a new team here in the building with us anymore if you're going to be valued with us?
No, they could, but if you think about it, you're going to be a businessman about it. When you own someone like the Lakers, you're thinking about business. And if you could cut the cost of your owning the Staples Center and dealing with it, if you could cut that in half and rent it out, why wouldn't you? It just save yourself money. But if the Clippers, nothing happens with them, then maybe the Lakers do. Maybe they talk with the league, and the league works something out where if they go ahead and breach the contract, get the Clippers out, depending on how long is left on that contract, and the league even offers to pay that, whatever the breach penalty is. That's another thing that maybe then Clippers have nowhere to even play.
Could you actually see that happening, though?
I don't think it would happen. It's a possibility, but I don't think it would happen. I think the outcry would be a little too much if you squoze a team off their home floor. But there are options that could be undertaken to kind of force Sterling out instead of, even if he gets to keep the team, he could be forced out in different ways.
I tell you what, Jesse, I mean, it's a mess.
Yep.
From a legal standpoint, though, the guy really didn't do anything legally wrong.
Yep.
I mean, you do have, a First Amendment here, as far as freedom of speech. I mean, you can say things. This is touching a real touchy point to me, and I know, obviously this is a sports show. This is what we do. But this is a real life situation. We just went through, the situation with, with Snowden, and NSA, and you see how that unfolds, and there are people that feel like, okay, the government's infringing too much on our rights, and then you have some that feel like we need the government to infringe on our rights to, so you don't have, tragic situations happen where people, may have some mental disabilities or whatever happening. But this is a situation where, Jesse, honestly, having looked at this as a black man, I don't necessarily think that he's racist. I actually think he's just an idiot, and he's old, not a touch. And what he said was very hurtful, but I've heard worse, to be quite frank.
Mm-hmm. And going back to your comment on the First Amendment too, it's great to have our First Amendment, and what the NBA has set up is actually outside of the First Amendment, just because that only applies to federal issues when you're dealing with the government itself.
So they're a private institution.
Right. And so what he said could come back again. What gets sticky now is if this goes into court and you want to use any evidence to show that what he did was against his agreement with the league, if I believe correctly that California requires both parties to be aware of any recorded statements, now that becomes an issue because can you enter that into evidence? So then that's when, it could start being an issue. But yeah, now when you're in your home, if we're all honest with ourselves, we've all said stuff at some point in our lives that is just idiotic, no reason to say it for who knows what reason you say it.
You said it out of anger. You're probably mad,
You look at a Riley Cooper situation.
Sure.
A decade ago, no one would have ever known anything about that, and it was an isolated incident.
Sure.
But now it's blown into these just major problems, and it just feeds back into the underlying issues that we constantly have going on in this nation, and all of our race issues that we have, and it just fuels that fire. And it's I don't want to say it's blown out of proportion because they are horrible things to say, but at the same time, if we're honest with ourselves, we all say stupid stuff.
Sure we do.
And
I mean, you and I joke with each other. We joke. I can say it. We joke race. We joke gender. We joke everything. I mean, but you have to know the person's heart. You have to know their intent. I don't know Donald Sterling. From what I've heard, from what I've read about, he has a history of maybe saying or doing some things. I mean, he's been sued before for doing some of these things. So again, I'm not going to come out and say that the guy is the worst man in the world. I don't know him. I can't judge him. But from a public opinion, there's no place, for a person in that kind of power. And that's the issue that I have. I mean, if you're talking about, the average person in this country whose salary is $25,000, $30,000, no one cares.
No.
But when you're talking about a billionaire that employs 90% African Americans, to make a comment like that, it does. And again, this is where I think the touchy issue with a lot of people comes in. It does strike up the slave master mentality. And we know about that part of our history, which is not one of the best moments of this country.
No.
And people just don't want to hear that. It's corporate slavery now. That's basically what it is.
Right. Yeah, it's, you can't have that of the elites in your society. And maybe he shouldn't be an elite. You shouldn't have people that think like that as an elite. But when you have that much money and you own a franchise that has that much power.
And he's not the only one, Jesse.
Oh,
Come
no.
on. I mean, he's just the only one that got caught. Now, with that said, before we wrap up and folks, I'm talking with our agent, Jesse White, right here. If you go back to, you said, as far as in California law is, you can't have that unless two parties consent as far as being recorded.
I believe so.
Well, if that's the case, couldn't, the Stiviano woman, couldn't she be somehow, prosecuted for a criminal offense?
Well, has she come out and said that she released that? Because I thought last I had seen, she was claiming that she didn't.
She said that she did not record that.
Mm-hmm. So
the wall didn't record it.
Well, just
somebody recorded something.
Yeah, and it makes it hard to prove who did. You can subpoena TMZ all you want and try to figure out who gave it to them, but they'd rather, deal with whatever contempt of court they get rather than give up their source.
Oh, no, they've gotten what they wanted. They got coverage.
And so the fact that I'm even talking about them.
Exactly. 3 weeks later, this is going to be one of the stories of the year. So, obviously we'll see how this plays out over the next 3-4 days because, again, we're talking about a Tuesday deadline that the league owners get a chance to vote him out, which it appears that they will do if he doesn't eloquently, and I'm not sure if that's a word you can use with this guy, but eloquently step down as the owner of this team. And let's face it, Jesse, come on, man. How many people can say that they're going to get an 80% raise on something that they bought? I mean, he bought them for $12 million. He can get like $1.2 billion for that.
Yeah.
I'm running to the bank. I'm sorry.
Yeah, finish up whatever you're doing, be happy. Maybe he goes and buys another team doing something else. Who knows?
He won't be buying another team. I can assure you that.
You never know. If you throw the right money, you can't tell me if it's a low-level team. I'm not talking top-of-the-line main professional sport. Some semi-pro team or something. If you came in with that kind of money, you can't tell me that they'd turn that down.
Hey, maybe now he tries to become one of the guys that wants to put an NFL team in Los Angeles. Yeah. I mean, when you have that kind of coin now, clearly you can do that, but I'm pretty sure that, well, maybe I'm not pretty sure. I was going to say Roger Goodell would never allow that, but at the end of the day, money talks and a lot of stuff walks. So
absolutely.
Well, look, my friend, as always, appreciate you coming on. This was yet another eye-opening thing. So I'm going to hold you to this. You still have Miami. You still have San Antonio.
I do.
And your winner is Miami. Yeah, gotcha.
I think I would actually I think San Antonio would beat them this year. If it's Oklahoma City, Miami, I think Miami wins. I would take San Antonio this year.
You've been working with me too much because now you're starting to think properly. You actually said something that makes sense this time. He predicted the right outcome. I mean, this is the same guy that said Wes Welker was going to catch 100 passes and all kinds of stuff.
Now, in all fairness,
he didn't.
In all fairness, if he didn't get hurt, he was well on pace for that.
Hey, man.
You have to admit.
There's a lot of ifs out there. If Donald Sterling wasn't recorded, we wouldn't have known how he was. So just teasing. But look, as always, good stuff, my friend.
Thank you, Lake.
That's a good pour. Frosty glass. Perfect amount of foam.
Thanks, Coach.
How's your Bloody Mary?
Spicy.
Wings?
Always fresh, never frozen.
All right. Who's the primary on Spider 2Z Snag?
It's the fullback out of the backfield. If he gets jammed, I'm heading the flanker on a curl route.
You're good.
I know.
Huddle up at Hooters. Why would you go anywhere else, man?